Cindy or Paula, do we have all of the commissioners here on PrimeGov and all of that?
We're double checking right now.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm not seeing Mr. LaForge.
I think he's coming. He sent us an email saying he may have to
Okay,
leave a little bit earlier, but I thought he was going to be on today.
okay. See her in PrimeGov. I don't see her in Zoom.
Cindy, do we have Commissioner Powers and Commissioner Coffey also,
We do have them in PrimeGov.
but not on Zoom, I guess?
No, I'm
Here we
having
go.
trouble.
There's Commissioner
have-
Powers.
Yeah, I see Powers. Coffee was having some trouble earlier, so she's trying.
Okay. You want to give her a minute, just a minute? Is
Yeah,
someone reaching out to her?
we did, yes, so she might just be trying to log on. We're working on it.
Perfect. Well, I think we should probably go ahead and get started unless we think it's imminent that Commissioner Coffey is going to be able to get on. If everybody's okay with that, commissioners, head shake. I see, there we go. Well, Thank you I'm going to call the meeting to order now, and thanks for joining us for the City of Oklahoma City's Planning Commission meeting, which is being held by video conference in accordance with state statute. We have a few announcements to make regarding the video conference meeting. If the video conference is disconnected at any time during the meeting shall be stopped and reconvened once the audio connection is restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, items remaining for consideration will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting on May 13th, 2021 at 1:30, which is scheduled to be held also by video conference. The agenda and documents are located on okc.gov. You can also call city staff at 405-297-2623 for additional assistance locating or accessing these documents. For anyone wishing to speak about an agenda item or to speak under citizens to be heard, hopefully you have previously notified staff by phone, email, or by signing up online, and I will call on you to speak at the appropriate time. I will also briefly allow for public comments on each agenda item. If you call in after your item has been heard, you will be allowed to speak under citizens to be heard. Speakers will be allowed 5 minutes to comment. When you are called upon, please unmute your phone by pressing *6. To raise your hand, press *9. On your computer, you can raise your hand with Alt-Y, and the spacebar can be used to mute and unmute yourself. I ask that all participants keep their lines on mute until they are recognized to speak. Commission members will be allowed to ask questions or comments at any time during the meeting. For anyone speaking today, including commission members, please identify yourself when you speak. There will be a roll call every 15 minutes if any members are not present. As a reminder to commissioners, we have each agreed to participate by video, so please keep your video on at all times and let me know if you are going to step away from your camera at any point. Commissioners may vote on PrimeGov or by roll call if PrimeGov is not available. So I think we are ready to move forward. Let's begin by receiving the minutes of the April 8th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll move
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Hinkle. I move we receive the minutes from the April 8th meeting.
second.
That motion has been made by Commissioner Hinkle and seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, my
Yes, ma'am.
PrimeGov doesn't seem to be allowing me to vote. I'm not quite sure what's not right about it, but I'll work on that. I vote aye.
Commissioner Powers votes
Commissioner
yes.
Powers, I'm sorry.
And the motion has passed unanimously to receive the minutes from the April 8th meeting. Let's move forward with continuance requests. The first item is uncontested continuance requests. Would Mr. Butler please read the names of the items that are uncontested requests?
Yes, item 21, case number CE 979, defer indefinitely. Item 22 is the dwelling ordinance, defer to May 13th. And item 23, SPUD 1217, defer to May 27th.
Excellent. Is there anyone from the public who is here to be heard on any of those items? Please press *6 or Alt-Y to be heard if you are here to be heard on any of those items that are now going to be continued. Let's give just a second. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve of the continuance requests as read?
This is Commissioner Clare. I move to approve the continuances as read.
Commissioner Clare moves to continue the requests as read. Second by Commissioner Privet. Please vote by PrimeGov if available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Powers?
I think I'm fixed, so I have already voted online, yes.
Perfect. All right, the motion carries unanimously. At this time, we'll review new continuance requests. Mr. Butler, would you mind reading the requests?
Yes, item 12, case SPUD 1286, defer to May 13th. Item 13, SPUD 1307, defer to May 13th. Item 18, SP 550, defer to 5/27. And item 19, SPUD 1299, defer to May 13th.
Thank you. Are there any commissioners or members of the public who wish to be heard on this, on any of these items that are now have requested continuances? That's *6 again if you're joining us by phone, Alt-Y if you are on your computer. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve of the continuance request as read.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Clare. I move to approve the new continuance request as read.
Commissioner Clare has made the motion. Let's see if we have a second. And Commissioner Highsmith. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Powers,
Commissioner Powers, were you able to vote on PrimeGov?
Yes, I think I have. It says
Yes.
yay.
Commissioner LaForge,
Let's see, is Commissioner LaForge, can we get a voice vote if he's available now?
I don't see his video, so I'm going to count him absent.
Okay. And the motion passes unanimously. At this time, we are at the consent docket. These are items that are considered very routine in nature and are recommended for approval to be approved unanimously. Mr. Butler, would you mind reading that list for us?
Sure. Consent docket number 1 is C-7287, a final plat of Native Plains, Section 4, located east of South Pennsylvania Avenue and north of Southwest 164th Street. Item 2 is case number C-7289, a final plat of Rose Rock Phase 2, located south of Northeast 50th Street and west of I-35 Service Road. Item 3 is case number C-7291, final plat of Cobblestone Curve, Section 4, located west of North Council Road and north of Northwest 122nd Street. Item 4 is case number C-7292, final plat of Robertson's Landing, Phase 3, located south of Northwest 122nd Street and east of North Morgan Road. And item 5, case C-7293, final plat of Lone Oak Valley, located south of Northwest 164th Street and west of North Portland Avenue.
Thank you. Are there any commissioners or members of the public who would like to be heard on any of these items that are being considered for the consent? *6 on your phone, Alt-Y on your computer. Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve of the consent docket as read.
Mr. Commissioner, this is Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Clare. I move approval of the consent document.
Commissioner Clare moves approval of the consent docket. Is there a second? Yes, by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Paula, were we able to get Commissioner LaForge?
I still don't see his video. Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure he's in PrimeGov.
He's in PrimeGov. I just don't see him also, Paula. And also, Mary Coffey is going to be trying to do voice vote.
Okay, do we have her on video?
Not on video. She doesn't have that.
I believe we're required to have her on video. Is that correct before we can take her vote?
This is
Susan. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. Yes, normally we should try to have her on video, but since she's having technical difficulties, as long as she's there and she's voice voting, I think that would be okay.
Okay. Commissioner Coffey, how do you vote on the consent docket? I'm trying to find her on the list too.
I don't see her connected yet. She was
Yeah, I
trying.
don't-
We just hung up from her.
Well, if she's unavailable, then the votes have been cast. So could we end the voting on PrimeGov? Excellent, and that's approved unanimously. Let's move forward with our items requiring separate vote. With this, Mr. Butler, would you start with reading the introduction of our first item?
Yes,
Item
item 6 is case CE 1049, application to close 180 feet of the platted north-south utility shared between lots 13 and, or 103 and 104 in Home Gardens Edition, located east of South Magnolia Avenue and south of Southeast Grand Boulevard.
Did the staff have anything to add to the introduction of this item before we hear from the applicant? Okay, great. I believe Jim King is here to represent the applicant. Mr. King, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I'm just here hopefully to be able to answer any questions that might come up. We're wanting to build a warehouse on this piece of property, and the easement as it is currently laid out would prohibit us from being able to do that since the easement cuts right through the middle of these properties. And so what we would like to do is be able to have that easement moved to the sides. We have no problem with there being an easement there. If it was just moved to the sides, it would allow us to be able to construct a warehouse on there. In addition, I think there's no active lines or anything running currently through the easement that we're aware of.
Gotcha. This is an item in my own ward, and I have no individual objections or comments. Are there any questions, comments from commissioners at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I note that this is an item that contains the new language about which we have received in our packets a memo. If the applicant is agreeable to the language, then I don't have a problem voting on it. I actually, before we implement this change, I would like the opportunity for us to discuss and explore it a little bit, why it's being done. I mean, I read the memo, but I'd like to have a bit of conversation and discussion about it. We don't necessarily have to do that as each item progresses today. And again, as I said, if the applicant is agreeable to the language, it's fine with me. But you know, whenever we make changes like this, I think it behooves us to explore them a little bit, discuss them, make sure we understand them, and so on.
I completely agree, Commissioner Powers. And my thought, I plan to actually bring up the memo at the end of the meeting when we heard from staff as well, because I thought it would be good for us to have that discussion. But for the sake of moving the meeting forward, I agree with you. If the applicant is agreeable, then I think it's appropriate to move forward with it as written, as requested in the TE. Mr. King, what are your thoughts?
Commissioner, we are agreeable. If the easement needs to be moved over to the side and still allow that to be able to go through, we have no problems with that at all.
Excellent. Then let's go ahead and move forward. Are there any? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item from the public? We don't have anyone signed up to speak. *6 on your phone or Alt-Y on your computer. I'll give us just a moment. Not seeing anyone. I think if there are no further discussion or comments from commissioners, I believe we're ready to entertain a motion for approval. This is my ward and I cannot make the motion as chair.
Mr. Vice Chairman, this is Commissioner Clare. I'm happy to make a motion to approve item CE 1049.
I don't ever see where she went in.
Commissioner Clare has made the motion to approve of CE 1049. Is there a second from Commissioner Powers? Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Were we able to find,
Chairman.
help Commissioner Coffey?
Chairman, is this motion with the condition of the technical evaluation?
Yes, ma'am. And just to clarify, that is with the approval of the TE as well.
Mr. Chair, this is Rusty LaForge. I joined at the beginning of this item. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties, but I've been on for this item and I voted.
Awesome. Glad you're here.
Thanks.
All right, and that motion to approve has passed. We're now on to item 7, CE 1050. Mr. Bell, would you introduce the item, please?
Yes, case CE 1050 is an application to close 95 feet of the platted northeast southwest utility easement located at 14232 Calais Circle.
Staff have anything additional to add to that introduction? If not, I believe that Mark Zipsow is here with Johnson Associates to present on this.
This is Tim Johnson.
Tim's here. Go ahead, Tim.
I can't see me either, so I don't know what's going on. Thank you. We're here on behalf of the applicant. And as you can see by the image on the screen, this is a platted easement that was not used by the city or by the developer. It was intended for a sewer line. The sewer line was built in another location out front. There is also an abutting additional utility easement on the golf course side. This property owner is purchasing from the golf course an additional approximately 20 feet from the golf course unmaintained area. And what this will allow, the release of this easement will allow him to expand his backyard and put in some backyard features like a gazebo and things like that. We did receive a letter of objection from ONG at kind of the last minute. We think it was an error. We spoke to their utility guy today, and he's doing some research. And so what we commit to do is bring a letter of no objection before this goes to council. We'll bring a letter to the staff before we set it for council. And we should know later today or tomorrow. With regard to the language the city's put in there, we would like to release this easement, and we're going to take it to district court because it's a platted easement. And at that time, it'll be closed forever. And we will not need to provide an additional easement for the city in this area because it was never used by the city. So I'm not sure legally how that language needs to read.
Let's start one item at a time, and let's start with the issue of the letter from ONG. Susan or Jeff, are we able to move forward with approval of this item without addressing directly the objection on the record from ONG? How does that work between now and council? Should we move forward?
I think that'd be okay between now and council to get the letter.
Perfect. And can we also address Tim's comments about the easement as far as reconciling that with the language that staff has recommended in TE1?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gotten a chance to really look at this particular one. I know the reason why they want the language, Public Works. You know, I think as long as it says that as long as the provisions that, if they don't need one, then they won't need one when we get to district court. But I think they want to continue with that language until we get to at least district court. And at that point, they can determine whether or not they can go ahead and release it.
So it wouldn't hinder in any way, Tim. Tim, you're fine with that?
Yes.
Okay.
I might, Mr. Chairman, this is Janice Powers. Having done quite a lot of vacation work, I'll just say that the city has always had a little bit of hesitation or reservation about where it stands if, in fact, a vote has been taken and a decision has been made to close something, whether it still has not the standing exactly, but the authoritative position to then go into district court and say, but we object to the vacation. So in this case, I think if it's going to move forward, it's going to move forward fairly quickly. It's going to be vacated. Letting this stay in place between now and district court makes sense to me.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. And I was about to ask you, honestly, because I knew you had some expertise in that. Any other questions from commission or comments from commissioners?
I mean,
Great.
my only question is in an instance like this, when an individual property owner wants to vacate this, I mean, once one person does and everyone else sees that there's an opportunity, you know, are we going to have, you know, another 10 applications for each individual property owner to vacate this, you know, so that they can have more space in their backyard? Does it make sense that, I mean, something like this needs to be approached from the entire easement instead of just this small section needs to be vacated?
Commissioner Claire, just typically they are not. This is really, you know, if it is beneficial to the property owners to band together, you know, for some reason, or if one property owner owns one side and there are multiple property owners on the other side, they do sometimes band together. But I mean, it may very well be that we'll have a bunch of them. It's possible, but it is a private cause of action really to close and vacate something. So it's not, I'm not sure the city is in a position to push it one way or the other to require that everybody join in, or else we're not going to do it. You know, the state law is pretty clear about how the process works. So
If I'm hearing you right in summation, Commissioner Powers, it sounds like there's nothing we could do either way. If people wanted to move forward, to Commissioner Claire's point, there's nothing the city could do to inhibit their ability to keep bringing these requests. Is that correct?
no, I don't think so. And I'm not sure we would want to. I mean,
Yeah.
it may make sense. It would certainly be, you know, cost benefit to them if they would band together and do it all at once. But, you know, it's just a private property right to recapture that easement. If it's not being used, it's not needed, whether it's right of way or whatever. And so, you know, it's not really up to us, I guess, to make that decision. At least that's my view of it. Other people may feel differently. I don't know.
I don't know if staff wants to comment on that.
Is the easement in the golf course or is the easement in the backyard already? Because he said he bought 20 extra feet from the golf course or something.
So this is Tim. Yeah, the easement that we're seeking to close and vacate is a platted 10-foot easement. And there is another easement that's on the golf course side. You can see the 5-foot UE. That's where we believe the ONG line is. And that's the only utility that's back there. Water and sewer are both in the front, electric's in the front. And all the fiber and cable are all in the front. So there's nobody back there but ONG, and he's on the golf course.
Right. Any other questions from commission? Then I think we are ready to hear from any members of the public that are wishing to be heard on this item. Please, we don't have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone from the public who's wishing to be heard on this item? Please press *6 if you're on your phone, Alt-Y if you are on your computer. We'll just wait just a moment. All right, hearing none. If there's no further discussion by any commissioners, I think we're ready to entertain a motion. And this was Ward 8. I don't believe, since Commissioner Cravens is not here, I think we're going to need someone to help us out.
Vice Chair, this is Commissioner Hinkle. I will move approval on CE 1050.
Commissioner Hinkle moves approval of, that we recommend approval of, or I guess we are approving of CE 1050.
Do we need this is Commissioner Claire. Do we need a second TE that it's provided that a letter of no objection is received from ONG prior to hearing at City Council?
That's a good point. I believe so. Mr.
We would agree
Commissioner,
to
are you for amending your motion to include that language?
Correct. That's yes, please.
Excellent. Do we have a second on the motion from Commissioner Claire? Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Perfect. All right. And CE 1050 has been approved.
Thank you very much.
We're now ready for item 8. Mr. Butler.
Item 8 is case PC 10724, application to rezone 2909 South Cemetery Road from AA to C3.
And is I believe the applicant is.
Good afternoon, Kendall Dillon with Crafton Toll, representing the applicant, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard. And this is a rezoning application for a tract that's a little under 5 acres, located at the northwest corner of Cemetery and Southwest 29th Street. We are requesting that it be rezoned to C3. If you look at your zoning map there, you'll notice on the south, it is existing RA zoning. That tract is vacant. On the opposite side, the east side of Cemetery Road is an agricultural tract that is also vacant. I'm not exactly sure what their plans are, but I do know that that tract is currently owned by Canadian Valley Boatech. We're joined on the west side by an existing industrial PUD that allows for outdoor storage and repair of oil field and well equipment. And then on the north, there's a residential PUD that was approved by you all last fall. It's my understanding my client has reached out to that developer, and I don't think they have any issues with our application. You'll notice in your staff report, staff did receive, I think, 3 letters of protest. And so I deferred this application from the last meeting. I've done everything I can do to reach out to those 3 individuals. I have been able to speak with Donna Canada, who is the owner immediately to our west that currently is operating a dog kennel and boarding service. And at the end of our conversation, at least she expressed to me that she's no longer in opposition. That's my understanding. So staff has recommended approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
One of the questions that I had, and this could be for staff or for you, Kendall, I wondered with the street improvements, I just don't remember. I know we do we've approved so much development in this area just generally. Are the street improvements happening on Cemetery Road, this section of Cemetery Road, or on Southwest 29th here? Do we know?
I'm not certain of any projects that's forthcoming. Obviously, Cemetery Road is in fairly good condition. It's actually was state highway. It's my understanding now that that's kind of been dedicated back over to the city. The condition of the road's good. There's probably some concerns or a little bit. There's about 10,000 vehicles per day, that travel that road. So at some point, there probably will be a warrant for some signal at the intersection there. I do know, obviously, that's something that some of the folks that have expressed some concerns is traffic. And, at least in terms of our vantage point, we're paying traffic impact fees. And so that we're doing our part to mitigate any traffic concerns that there may be. From a immediate standpoint, there's an existing log cabin on the site. And I think my client's desires is to put in a photography studio there. So I think the intent is to kind of leave that structure, and then it's invitation only. And so I don't think in the immediate future that there's going to be any traffic generation at all.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? See, and I believe that this is Ward 3. This would be Commissioner Coffey, who I don't think is Commissioner Coffey joined us? I don't believe so. Any questions from commissioners? If not, we can move to comments from the public. And there is no one who has signed up to speak. Is there anyone wishing to be heard on this item? Please press *6 on your phone or Alt-Y on your computer. I'm happy to give you just a moment.
Chairman Pennington.
Yes, sir.
This is Commissioner Highsmith. While we wait to see if there's any public comment on this item, I was going to ask staff, I know we see items like this somewhat frequently, but I'm trying to remember how common is you know, an application of C3 in a area such as this? Because obviously it is a lot of AA and RA. And I just want to understand if C3 is typical or we feel, I mean, obviously we've got a recommendation for approval here from staff, but I guess I'd just like to know, you know, if this is something we see a lot of in terms of the mix of uses, or
we see these from time to time, and the comp plan supports certain amount of commercial zoning at section line intersections like this.
that's what I thought. I guess, yeah, some of these uses that we would find typical in these areas for this type of section line crossing probably only exist in C3. Is that correct? You know, like some of obviously what they're asking for.
Yes, plus some.
Jeff, did you have anything to add to that as well? To JJ's comment?
I don't recall. I couldn't tell you the numbers. I know that in years past we've had similar situations, and JJ's correct. I mean, the comprehensive plan does say that a certain amount of commercial uses are needed and appropriate, and kind of a small scale in these rural areas. And this is kind of a getting close to the suburban style suburban area here as you move to the northeast. But yeah, I recall a few, and Sarah could probably recall a few more cases that are similar. I couldn't tell you how many of them have been C3 versus some other zoning, or maybe possibly SPUDs.
We did a Casey's out there not too long ago, just a mile away. Same kind of deal.
I know we've approved a lot in this area just generally. I'm not seeing anyone here to sign up to speak. Is there any further discussion from commission members at this time?
This is Commissioner Claire. I have a question. Does the applicant have any objection to the request that 17 feet of right-of-way should be requested along 29th and Cemetery Road to bring right-of-way into line with current subdivision regulations?
Sure. Yes, we're agreeable to that.
Excellent. There's no further discussion. I think we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Pennington, can we make sure that Mary Coffey is able to voice vote, because I don't see her on Zoom on her regular number?
Yes, ma'am. If Commissioner Coffey, are you joining us? *6 if you're calling in.
Hello, this is Commissioner Coffey. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just having terrible connections today. I move approval of this particular application.
Excellent. So Commissioner Coffey has moved to recommend approval of PC 10724. Please cast your vote. Is there a second? From Commissioner Claire, please cast your votes at this time. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Coffey, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Coffey votes yes as well. I haven't voted. There we go. And the motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. We're now ready for item 9. Mr. Butler, would you please introduce the item?
Item 9 is case PC 10725, application to rezone 5100 East I-240 Service Road from PUD 942 to I-1.
I believe that Mr. Box is here representing the applicant. Mr. Box?
Yes.
5 minutes.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. On behalf of the applicant, this is an application for I-1. It is next door to the hospital, so I-1 we believe to be an appropriate use, allowing various institutional type of uses. It's currently zoned R1 under its current PUD. I would suggest that R1 along Interstate Service Road, sandwiched between institutional uses like a hospital, and it's actually I-1 to our west through the old PUD. R1 would likely not be appropriate in our opinion. So it's a small tract, approximately 1.3 acres. I-1 staff does recommend approval. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
David, would you start with addressing any mitigation that's going to be required or that you're going to do as far as the residential to the south of the property?
So there's a good amount of space between the subject site and the residential to the south. Of course, we don't own that. But if Cindy, if you could display the aerial, that might be instructive. It's the portion to the south is floodway, and so it's fully treed as it's a creek. So we're actually going to be further north than the hospital uses to that neighborhood. So we think with the existing tree cover and the fact that it's floodway and floodplain, that there will be adequate buffer and separation from the residential to our use.
Excellent. Any questions from commissioners? I believe that this is, I was about to say, it's starting with you, Commissioner Privet. Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, this has turned into a pretty big complex, and I don't see this as being an issue right here.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments from commissioners? Excellent. I think we're ready to hear from the public. If there's anyone wishing to speak, please press *6 on your phone or Alt-Y so that we can hear from you at this time. I'll give just one moment. *6, Alt-Y. Not seeing anyone here. Any other follow-up comments or questions from commissioners? If not, I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move to approve PC 10725. Recommend approval to City Council.
Commissioner Privet moves to send PC 10725 to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. Please cast your votes at this time. We've got a second from Commissioner LaForge. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Coffey, how do you vote?
Thank you.
Coffey. I think, did we hear from Commissioner Coffey? Or was she able to vote online? Excellent. Okay. And the motion passes. Thank you. We're now on item 10. Mr. Butler?
Item 10 is case number PC 10726, an application to rezone 805 Northwest 68th Street from R1 to I1.
Excellent. And I believe the applicant is Heather Guest. Is Ms. Guest available?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. This is Heather Guest representing Randy Suttereth of Suttereth Design. We are requesting that the property be rezoned from R1 to I1 light industrial so that we can construct a warehouse with small office space.
Excellent. Let's start with Commissioner Powers, since this is an item Ward 2. Commissioner Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This area, as you can see just from the map that's enclosed with your staff report, is a very, 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 very mixed area. And that mix goes all the way from Classen to really the railroad tracks beyond Chartel. Although the area beyond Chartel is a little bit more established now, I think, in terms of industrial use. And the concern, the only real concern that I have about this application is that it is a straight zoning request rather than an SPUD. I don't have a problem with the kind of use that they indicate that they want to make of the property because they have frontage on Chartel. But of course, out of straight zoning, we don't have the ability to in any way ensure that the orientation of the zoning is on Chartel. There are still residential properties and uses. It's not just residential zoning that scatters this area. Some of it, it's always hard to make a judgment about what's viable and what's not, when it's a neighborhood that people are still living in. It has a fairly, it's really mixed uses of basically industrial uses and these residential uses that are of longstanding. Again, as I say, I don't necessarily have a problem with the use they intend to make of the property, but the inability to do anything to control access onto 68th or to do anything to ameliorate whatever impact there might be on the still existing residential uses that are not really adjacent. I wouldn't say that, but that are well, yeah, there are still some that are adjacent, certainly north and southwest. So I would like to hear what the applicant has to say about the possibility of putting this into an SPUD where we can at least impose some restrictions on access. And I mean, nothing complicated or difficult, but you know, a few basic controls.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. I do think it's also worth noting, because I do think that's a very important point, Commissioner Powers. I think it's worth mentioning on page 8 of the staff report does talk about the required 15-foot setback with a 5-foot landscape buffer, site-proof screening, and reduced building heights would be required on the west side already, even though this is a straight zoning application. So I did want to make sure I put that in context. Ms. Guest, what are your thoughts on?
Yes, it's not going to be any sort of a heavy traffic situation. There would honestly just be myself and Randy, the only two people using that area.
But that's not something, I mean, that's just the use you intend to make of it. Once it's rezoned to I-1, that stays with the property forever. The next person may have a very high traffic use of it.
I see.
Other questions and comments from commissioners?
While I understand Commissioner Powers' point here, there's a lot of base zoning already in the area. I personally don't have a problem with the base zone here. So that's just me throwing it out there for the applicant.
Thank you.
Other thoughts from commissioners or questions? All right, then let's move forward with public comments. I don't believe we have anyone signed up to speak. If there's anyone from the public, I think we have someone with their hand raised, Jenny Nguyen, and we'll give you 5 minutes. Please go ahead and say your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Jenny Nguyen. I am just wanting to ask a few questions about the property. I think, did you say your name was Chelsea? The applicant's name? The applicant
is Ms.
Randy. Okay.
Wait, I'm back on.
Okay, sorry. Hey, I was just curious, what do you guys are, I don't know how far you guys are into design plans, but did you happen to know what type of siding material you'll be using? And what way which way the building will face?
The building will face south. And right now we're looking at either board and batten or like R panel steel.
Okay.
It's going to be constructed to basically appear residential.
Okay.
Is the way we have it drawn.
Okay. That's all that I have.
What's your name? Jenny Wind?
Yes.
Okay.
I would just point out that building materials and so forth, can't be dictated under a straight zoning application. The fact that it's intended to face south makes me a little nervous. I would really like to see this put into an SPD. And I don't think we asked Ms. Nguyen what her address was, just for the record.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we got that. Ms. Nguyen, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Could you share your address for the record, please?
Sure. So my lot doesn't actually have an address yet, but you could use 6800 North Chartel. It's the lot just east of 6800 North Chartel.
Gotcha.
Just in that back corner.
It's actually an address at which we can reach you if we want to.
Okay.
If we need to contact you.
All right. My address is 1225 Northwest 32nd. And that's Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wanting to be heard on this item at this time? *6 on your phone or Alt-Y on your computer. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to commissioners. I think that the issue here is do we want to ask them to move forward with a PUD, an SPUD here? Are we comfortable with straight zoning? Can we hear from other commissioners maybe to get a read on where everyone's at this point?
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Powers.
Commissioner Hinkle's thinking PUD here. Commissioner Claire, Commissioner Coffey.
Yeah, I think we need to nail down some of the details and the place to do that in PUD.
So PUD, you're saying PUD, not SPUD?
It'll be an SPUD.
Maybe an SPUD based on the square footage, I believe, right?
Yes, yes.
And so this would just essentially if the motion, Ms. Guest, just for your knowledge, if the commission was to ask you to take a continuance and go back and request that you turn this application into an SPUD, would you be willing to do so? Otherwise, it sounds like the commission would make a motion to deny your request, would recommend denial of your request for rezoning and send it forward to the city council, at which time you could have the option of convincing the city council to approve your rezoning application. So that's
I
kind of
am willing to, yes, do an SPUD.
Okay, it sounds
And
like we might have the.
I'll just say, this Commissioner Powers, I'll be more than happy to work with you. Staff will be more than happy to work with you. This does not need to be anything complicated.
Okay, great. This is my first time, actually. I've been so nervous.
Oh, well, then it'll be fun. It's an adventure. You'll see.
Okay.
It will be fun. You're in good hands. You're in good hands.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, then I think we're ready for
just for the record, this is Commissioner. This is Commissioner Highsmith. The applicant doesn't need to reapply, do they? JJ, before, right? We've allowed them to basically skip their application over so that they don't have to pay the fee twice, right?
I thought so.
Yeah, that's correct. The SPUD fee is a little bit higher, so we just asked them to come up with the difference. I think it's $300, and then we proceed on.
Gotcha.
Okay, I wanted to voice that or put that out there verbally for the applicant just so they understood.
Absolutely. And from a process standpoint, is continuing this item to May 13th sufficient time, JJ?
No, we'll need to go to the 27th.
27th?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Powers, for the motion?
Thank you very, very much. Yes, I will reach out to the applicant as soon as this meeting is over. I would move to continue this item until May the 27th so that it can be resubmitted as an SPD.
The motion is that item PC 10726 is continued to the May 27th meeting so that it can be converted to an SPUD application. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Coffey. Please cast your votes at this time. Commissioner Hinkle, your vote?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Hinkle votes yes.
Commissioner Coffey, will you provide a voice vote?
Can we unmute?
I'll take the second if she's not available.
Commissioner Coffey, *6 to unmute. I think we need a verbal vote from you.
Vice Chair, I'm going to step away for a second.
Thank you. Commissioner Coffey was able to make the second on PrimeGov. I don't know, Cindy, you might be able to see on the panelists if there's a way to unmute Commissioner Coffey so we can get her voice vote. I wasn't sure which phone number she was calling in from.
Yeah, it shows that she's unmuted.
Commissioner Coffey? Okay, well, we can close the vote and we can just, if staff, would somebody be able to maybe reach out to Commissioner Coffey and see how things are going? Maybe we can still help her a little bit with that process.
Yes, we will. Yes.
Thank you so much.
May I ask a question? Susan
Yes, please.
Randall,
Yes,
how would you like me to process this vote?
I think we need to hear her voice since we can't see her. So that we know for sure. I know she's voting, but so we know
Have you,
for sure
have-
that that's her.
can you see my vote on?
Okay, now we
We
can.
can hear you. Now we can hear
now
you, so
we can
that's
hear you.
fine.
And I can see your vote online. However, they want to do a voice vote because we don't see you on video.
Okay, I had seconded the motion and voted yes.
I've got you down. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coffey. Sorry, please forgive us, members of the public. We're still living in a fun Zoom world. So, all right, and the motion passes unanimously. We're now on to item 11.
Item 11
SPP 1306.
1306, application to rezone 13201 Green Hill Road from PUD 1723 to SPUD 1306.
And this, the applicant is Mr. Box.
Yes,
Box.
good afternoon.
Go ahead.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an application for an SPUD that would allow for office uses. It's in an area that is got, frankly, a broad mix of uses. To the east is a brand new residential development, also some townhomes, large commercial tract that's undeveloped but likely to develop soon. Quail Creek is west of May. So we believe that this office park tucked back here behind Featherstone east of May would be an appropriate use. The SPUD has no technical evaluations. There is no protest that I am aware of, no issues that have been identified. So I'd be happy to answer any questions and we'd ask for your approval.
Mr. Box, and this is just following up on comments that that our chairman, Commissioner Cravens, brought up to me in a phone call just about the dumpsters. Would you address that issue? We typically have been asking applicants for the 50 feet, but you addressed that with him.
I did. So on this side, Cindy, if you go back to the aerial, you know, our southern border is where we have our dumpsters. They're actually set off of the property line more than the parking is. But you'll see that to our south is a form of multifamily zoning, and they do have some of their dumpsters along that north line. So I don't think it'll create an operational impact. We believe that based upon where their uses are and what they have along that northern line, that 25 feet off will be appropriate and not create any impact to them. I did mention that to Scott. His comment was that because it's an office use and not a commercial use or some other type of use, the fact that the dumpsters are 25 feet did not give him big cause for concern.
Thank you, David. Questions, comments from commission? Any questions or comments, commissioners? Let's move forward then. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Powers. Sorry.
I'm sorry, this is Commissioner. I just want to be real sure what we're talking about here. Mr. Box, as I'm looking at one of the staff report exhibits, it shows a small little box there right in the northeast corner of the senior living development to the south. Is that where their dumpsters are?
That's my belief, yes, ma'am.
And that's where you're proposing to put yours next to it on your property?
No, if you look to the west, Cindy, this is going to be as clunky as can be. Cindy, if you can put your cursor over the site plan and I will guide you. Okay, let's go down a little bit, and to the left, and down. And there we go. So that is the proposed location of the dumpsters. Again, they'll be screened. The SPUD does require screening. Obviously, they're facing to the north, so the operational impact will be minimal as the dump trucks will come in from the north, drive south, and pick them up. So,
couldn't you put them directly on that far west property line where you back up to the fast food restaurants? I mean, that's so close to that senior living development there.
So
dumpster pickup is so noisy.
So to the west, we have the buildings, and there's really not a way to move those buildings around. I mean,
Isn't there space between, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not understanding what I'm looking at here.
no, there wouldn't be space between that to add paving and put dumpsters, basically what would be between the buildings. I mean, so the 25 feet is the standard setback for moving dumpster locations. I understand that Mr. Cravens has desired 50 feet everywhere now, but given the nature of the use being office and not commercial or frankly multifamily, the impact of office dumpsters is just not likely to be very great. When I walked through the site plan with him, he seemed to be understanding of that point, and based upon the nature of the use, did not have any big objection.
So the impact of dumpsters is sort of, at least twofold. One is the mess they are, and I get you can contain it. An office may not be that big a deal, but for me, the big issue with respect to being adjacent to residential is always the noise. They pick them up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They're incredibly loud. When they lift them and they dump them and then they set them back down on the ground, it is a lot of noise. And it always seems to be at some ungodly hour of the morning.
And I would certainly agree with your point, except for the fact that, of course, the multifamily project has their own dumpsters. So it's not like we're introducing an office development with dumpsters next to single family residential that doesn't have dumpsters. The multifamily piece has their own dumpsters.
But their dumpsters are not right there. You're talking about putting these right next to that building.
Well, but that right next to that building, if you look at the far east end of the senior living, they're almost the same distance to those dumpsters as we are to that piece of building.
I'm not buying that. So they look a lot farther away to me, and they're separated by open space and so on.
That's parking lot. It's not separated by open space. It's separated by parking lot and then a fence. And then we will have our fence. And then we are going to be screened by masonry wall.
You can't, and it's harder to see on this one, just to add to this discussion, Commissioner Powers, it's easier to see in the packet picture than it is on this one. Virtually, you can see where the buildings are and where the curb, that picture is a better depiction, I think.
Right.
Of why it would be difficult to put the dumpsters there to further to the west. Just wanted to make that comment. Any other commissioners' thoughts on the dumpsters or other questions or comments from Mr. Box?
This is Commissioner Claire. I mean, I'm just thinking, is there any reason, and maybe it's a setback, that you couldn't take the 3 spaces in the far northeast corner as you basically exit the property and put the dumpsters there?
Yeah, so the way that the site is engineered, we are on the nose for our parking count. To move it to the northeast, we are now under parking. It would require some form of variance. But I want to point out, like, we are meeting the city regs. The 50 feet is a made up request of Commissioner Cravens that he's recently put forward. There's no TEs. There's no operational impacts identified by staff as it relates to the location of the dumpsters. If we're going to start making requirement that it's just 50 feet, then perhaps some ordinance needs to be changed. But there's no protest.
I'm sorry, this is an SPUD, so these kinds of negotiations are expected as part of that. So
Well, they're not expected at the day of the hearing. They're expected when there's protests and concerns raised by residents.
I beg to differ with that. We're here to do our job.
Other questions, comments from commissioners, from Mr. Box?
And clarification on my comment would be relocate the 3 spaces in the northeast corner to where the dumpsters are now and move the dumpster. It's just a swap.
Yeah, so we tried that and that doesn't work.
Okay.
Because of the depth of the spaces, is what I'm told.
Other questions?
I don't have any questions, but this is Commissioner Highsmith. I do agree with the applicant that if we're going to require, the 50 in the future, that we should, as a commission, probably take this up as an ordinance change. I think that's totally fair comment.
Applicants design sites based upon code requirements. And to just have certain individual planning commission members come up with desires is fine, but to force that as if it was an ordinance, I think is unfair.
I mean, I think we've done a pretty
I would
good
agree.
job. To be fair, I think we've done a good job of talking to applicants and saying this is something that we think is important, and really trying to have this kind of back and forth discussion to see if it is feasible. And it sounds to me like it's you all tried to find other ways to comply with the 50, but it doesn't sound as feasible for you at this point with this particular design. So I think we're well within our purview, as Commissioner Powers said, but I think it is a little bit of give and take on where we end up on that. But how are other commissioners feeling? Any other comments before we hear from the public?
This is Commissioner LaForge. I'll say, so I'm pretty familiar with that area. Been in that nursing home quite a few times. I think it's being an office building next to it. And at the bigger picture, I think it's a good development to be there. If the only one thing we're picking on is the distance of dumpsters, that's not enough for me to vote against it. If there was a volume of things and neighbors protesting or different things, then maybe I'd feel differently. But if that's the only thing, I think overall that's a good project to be next door there.
I thank you, Commissioner LaForge, and I tend to think also it's pretty compelling that the existing property that we're worried about disturbing also has a dumpster within, it looks like about 50 feet of where these 50 to 100 feet from where these are being proposed as well. So I don't know that it's avoidable entirely to remove these residents from any dumpster noise. Other comments or questions from commissioners before we hear from the public?
This is probably a pie in the sky dream, but is there any way that you could make it to where the trash truck couldn't pick the dumpster up anytime before the hour of 10 o'clock in the morning? Because at our place at 5 o'clock in the morning, the trash truck comes and picks up a dumpster and slam bangs it 3 or 4 times and then puts the truck in reverse and backs up, and it goes beep, beep, beep. And I know the residential that are living right over that fence, I mean, that's their alarm clock on Tuesdays and Fridays, is that truck coming in at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly make a request. I don't believe that dictating when trash is picked up is a proper tool to put into an SPUD.
Said pie in the sky.
Well, we're all entitled
I qualified that.
Dream. I appreciate that.
Other questions, comments from commissioners? Let's hear from the public. Is there anyone wishing to be heard on this item? We don't have anyone signed up to speak. Please press *6 on your phone or Alt-Y on your computer. *6, Alt-Y. Seeing none. Any closing comments from commissioners? The existing PUD, the existing request has 25 feet. So if you're going to, if there's anybody who's going to make a motion to alter them, then you'd have to make sure that that's included in that motion. But is there any other discussion from commission? I believe we're ready to entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the application. This LaForge, I'd make, oh, okay, I thought I lost you guys. I'll make a motion to approve it with the, as it was submitted on the distance, as it was submitted.
Is there a second? I don't know if it's appeared on PrimeGov. There's a second from Commissioner Highsmith to approve of the of SPUD 1306 as submitted. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Hinkle votes yes. And was Commissioner Coffey able to vote on PrimeGov?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Coffey votes yes.
Thank you.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Chair, I'm going to step away real quick.
And Commissioner Privet is stepping away. Items 12 and 13 have been continued. We're now on to item 14, SPUD 1814. Mr. Buck.
This is an application to rezone 1108 Northwest 116th Street from SPUD 522, R1 single family, and R2 to PUD 1814.
And the applicant I believe, is Mr. Richard Rice. Mr. Rice, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Can you guys hear me?
Can you? Yes.
You can hear me. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Gaines, the actual applicant, is not present because he's currently hospitalized. I'm Richard Rice. I'm his attorney. I'm at 1401 South Douglas in Midwest City, 73130. The property that we are asking is to rezone from the current SPUD to a PUD to allow for outdoor storage. The map that's currently up there shows tract 1 is an existing storage facility owned by Mr. Gaines, and tracts 2 and 3 are also owned by Mr. Gaines, but those happen to be zoned residential, and he's been using all of them, including land that he owns to the west of tract 1 for a storage facility. And the option for him was to move his office to either tract 2 or 3 and contain all of the storage within tract 1, or seek approval from you for the PUD. You can see from the aerial photograph how he's using that property, and it's my understanding that nobody has objected to this. He does have a fence around all of the properties. I can entertain any specific questions you may have.
Yeah, I just had one specific question about that screening. So you're saying they're fencing all around where all of the storage is? And if
yes.
So, what's the height? I think that was mentioned in the staff report.
I believe the height is sufficient, but I would tell you, I'll be very, very candid. Me personally, I think the fence can be improved. And, and I think that it would also make it more attractive. And I would have absolutely no problem if that was a requirement to improve the fencing around the entire property.
I think that makes a lot of
Well,
sense.
on that note, this is Commissioner Highsmith. I would just note or ask of the applicant here, have you read and understood the technical evaluations, and are you in agreement with them?
Yes.
Yeah, I think to me, TE1 speaks quite a bit to, the question of the fence and the perimeter. And as long as they're in agreement with that, I mean, yeah, if we could get improvements on the fence too, that'd be great.
I think that's great. And I don't know if that means that we should include as a TE that there should be, 8-foot fence screen, site-proof fencing, if that's sufficient, or if the language in TE1 is sufficient to address what we're looking for. I love hearing from the architects, Commissioner Highsmith and Commissioner Clare. You all thoughts on that?
Well, I think it would just be an amendment to TE1 that says outside of site-proof, 8-foot, if we want to call out 8-foot fencing, site-proof fencing.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts from commissioners on the whole concept, or are we good with TE1 as is? Other thoughts in general about the applicant, or questions for the applicant?
This is Commissioner Powers. This site has been problematic for quite some time. I was on the commission when the original zoning was granted. Frankly, it's almost never been complied with. It's the original provisions of the SPUD were fairly tightly negotiated. The fact that the applicant's representative sort of cavalierly acknowledges that the property to the west, which is not zoned for vehicular storage, is being used that way is a really good example of the approach that they've taken to the site. During the time that this property has grown from a very small, very specific SPUD that was designed to allow someone who is living on the property in that structure to do a little bit of storage in what was basically their backyard, to what it is now, which is not simply a storage for recreational vehicles, but just an outdoor storage facility of all kinds. And since that time, you know, a significant residential development has built up around it. I have reached out to the applicant, have not been able to contact him, was not aware that he was in the hospital, of course. I would really like to see this item continued. I would like to meet with the applicant. I would like to see if we can address the issues that are of longstanding for the property and work out what, you know, can be done in the future to make this site functional. It is, in fact, an outdoor storage area. I'm not necessarily opposed to making that work, but I'm certainly not going to be supportive of enlarging it or expanding it when it's not in compliance with its current zoning. So
Mr. Rice, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there was a lot there that I can address, but what I would like to do is I would like to go back to the first comments that Ms. Powers made. I think Mr. Gaines a number of years ago was just kind of shooting from the hip and doing this on his own. And recently, when the city contacted him and said, hey, I don't think that you can have storage in tract 3, he then contacted me. Now, I'm a private attorney. I have my own firm, but about me is I spent 15 years on the Midwest City Council, and the engineer that I hired to do our engineering is Mr. Jackson, who was the city engineer for nearly that entire time. And it's because Mr. Gaines came to us and said, I'm kind of out of my element here, and this is what I need to do. And the first thing that we told him is, okay, even if you get this passed, your fence is, frankly, it's ugly and it needs to be fixed if you want any hope of getting anywhere with this. He also is making a bid to buy the land in between tract 2 and tract 3.
Okay.
So that he can make it more of a normal looking facility rather than that sawtooth application. And from the first time that he was in front of you a number of years ago with the PUD request, the property to the south was residential and it's now commercial with a church going in at that location. So on behalf of the applicant, I want to make it look nicer with a better fence. And I think that that would accomplish a whole lot of the concerns. But the other parts of Ms. Powers' concerns are that Mr. Gaines is now finally getting professional advice and trying to do this in a professional way rather than doing a patchwork quilt of his own design. And I think that that is one of the things that Ms. Powers has a right to raise and address. I do believe that we can accommodate her concerns, but the appearance from the street is the number one concern that I, having been in the chairs that you all sit, was concerned with. And that's why I very freely am agreeing with the possibility of that being a requirement to anything he does.
To Commissioner Powers' direct question about taking a continuance, is that something you are open to doing? And I'm not necessarily saying that there's not a vote right now, Mr. Rice. There may be votes right now. The rest of the commission may have the feeling that they are prepared to vote in favor of it now, but what are your thoughts on a continuance as Commissioner Powers?
If the concerns are mainly the fencing and future compliance, I would be opposed to a continuance solely because I believe that I can address all of those right now. If, however, there are other concerns or speculative concerns and she just wants face-to-face time with him, I don't have a problem with that in general, but I'm not certain when he's getting out of the hospital, and I don't want to continue this for too long because aside from this request, we do have code enforcement who is wanting some action on this, and we either have to tear it all down and move it all, or we have to put up a better fence and come into compliance. And that's what my proposal is. So I would prefer to deal with it today respectfully.
Code enforcement will not move forward as long as this action is pending. So that's really not an issue. This area is an area that is a very specific attention and concern to Councilman Cooper, I know. So I think the time would be well spent. I have no problem with 2 weeks if that's what you want to take. Well, that will give us plenty of time to sit down or Zoom or whatever we do and address the issues.
I mean, I think, and I'm curious what the rest of the commission thinks, but I mean, Commissioner Powers, to me, if the biggest issue is the screening, I think the 8-foot site-proof fence is sufficient along with the rest of the requests of TE1. I guess I'm just wondering what we're going to accomplish with the continuance that couldn't be handled between now and council if we already went ahead and made that addition as Commissioner Clerk.
I think the issues of compliance are an issue that needs to be addressed. With all due respect to Mr. Rice, as an attorney myself, he's got a client who's in the hospital. I don't know how he's in a position to guarantee he's going to comply in the future when he has not complied in the past. This case has come before the Planning Commission since its original zoning. And at that time, these issues were raised. The applicant took a continuance, and then the case was never pursued. So, it's easy to say this will all get fixed and be pretty, but I think it's going to take a little bit more discussion than that to get my vote today.
This is Commissioner Highsmith. This is an item that I agree with Janice on for sure. I think just based on her knowledge of the history of the item and the issues that were involved, I think it's completely fair to put this in the court of continuance and having further discussion on it. I'd be in support of that on this item.
Other questions from commission? All right.
It's currently fenced right now, right? Maybe chain link, 6 foot.
It's currently fenced. It's not pretty, and I would further if the requirement is 8-foot site-proof fencing, I would add to that professionally installed. Hint, hint, hint.
One thing for the commission to consider, this is Jeff. When the client or when the applicant pulls a fence permit, that might be a good opportunity or a good time to require them to plant any trees, landscaping that are going to be required. I know the TE1 right now says with any new building permit, but that may not happen given what's going on the site. So that would be something to look at.
Okay, so you're saying add a requirement TE1 that when the fence permit is requested is what would trigger. Is that what you're saying, Jeff?
Yes, because I don't know that a building permit would be required anytime soon if they're just adding additional storage. But what they would need to make a legal fence is a fence permit.
Gotcha. Other questions, comments from commissioners? I think we're ready to hear from the public. If there's anybody is there anyone wishing to be heard at this time? Please press *6 on your phone or Alt-Y on your computer. We'll give just one moment. Seeing none, I think we're ready to have discussion from commissioners. I think there's some, I'm of the opinion personally that I can vote for the continuance if the majority of the commission is in favor of that, but I'm also fine with moving it forward with the amendments as discussed to TE1. So are there other thoughts from commissioners to kind of see where we are before Commissioner Powers makes the motion?
This is Commissioner Highsmith again. I guess for me, one of the factors on this one is the fact that it is outdoor storage, and we usually, we like to be careful about where we approve outdoor storage. Understanding that it might have been here before the residential, we've now got residential, and we've got a property that's not been in compliance. So I still think it's completely fair to ask them, in this situation, that, hey, you might owe us a little bit more conversation on this. And so that's why I'm still supporting the continuance.
And you'll recall, I did ask to that point, Mr. Highsmith, I did ask at our last meeting, is non-compliance, I asked Dan Brummett, our legal counsel, can we take non-compliance into account when we approve of SPUDs? And he said, yes, that is a valid reason for us to require additional scrutiny or to vote no for approval on an SPUD. Other thoughts from commissioners?
I would be in favor of a continuance.
Sounds like there's some consensus here.
Yeah,
There's no
I mean, to me, yeah.
Or Highsmith, sorry. Go ahead,
I'll go
Commissioner Clare,
first.
you first.
All right. Yeah, I would be in favor of continuance.
Commissioner Highsmith, sorry.
I was just going to note that it was my opinion that, like, you know, the previous continuance that we requested was even for, you know, less of an impact. I think this is, to me, you know, definitely one deserving of it if we have one today.
Commissioner Coffee, I would favor the continuance.
Sounds like there's some unanimity here. Commissioner Powers, at this time, I think we're ready for a motion.
So I guess I'll just put it straight up to the applicant. I mean, if you're willing to take 2 weeks and discuss this further, I will recommend that. If you're not, I'm going to recommend denial. So what do you want to do?
Well, given those choices, I would love to continue this and have the opportunity to.
That's very gracious of you.
Ms. Powers, Mr. Gaines has been in the hospital for quite some time, and his adult daughter has been managing the business for some time. Would it be acceptable to meet with me and Miss Gaines?
Yes, of course. If she has her father's authority to manage this matter for him, of course.
She does. Thank you.
Well, having said all that, I'm going to move that we continue this matter for 2 weeks until our first meeting in May, the 13th.
The motion for the body is to continue PUD 1814 until the May 13th meeting. Is there a second? Yes, there is a second from Commissioner Highsmith. Okay, please cast your votes at this time. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Coffee, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Coffee votes yes as well.
Commissioner Powers?
Oh, I'm sorry. I vote aye, of course.
And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you. Is that going to be at 1:30 on the 13th?
1:30 on the 13th, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I'll assume that you should probably reach out to Commissioner Powers or Commissioner Powers. You've got his contact info in the packet.
You know what? All I have is Sunset Courier Inc. at AOL.com. So if you will,
I can give you my email right now if you would like.
Great, do it.
I'm going to say it and spell it. It's rick@ricelawfirm.net. That's RICK@RICELAWFIRM.net.
Okay, great. I will reach out to you as soon as the meeting's over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I think we're now on to item 15, C7283. Mr. Butler.
Yes, this case is a preliminary plat of Morgan Glen, and that is located north of Southwest 44th Street and west of South Morgan Road.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir. Brad Reeves of Craft and Toll here on behalf of the applicant.
Please go ahead.
So what we have here is a preliminary plat for 269 lots on 77 acres, 3.5 dwelling units an acre. The comprehensive plan is urban low. We have had some, if you can see, there's been some protest letters. I've reached out to a few of the individuals, and I believe my number was given, so I've talked to a few more. What we have is a little bit of an odd situation with the way that the turnpike came in here at Morgan. This area is pretty popular now, but there is a couple 5-acre tracts, and then there's the Wimberley Estates edition that's just to the north there that was developed with 1-acre tracts on sewer and water. So what we did a 10-foot common area buffer against the Wimberley Estates edition, and then the 5-acre tracts to the west. There's 7 TEs. We agree with TE 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We agree with TE 2. What there is there's a private roadway easement for half on this property, half on those 5-acre tracts of Morgan Terrace. It's a private road. So there's a request for variance for street stubs. We're requesting to not tie into the west. That's I think the commission has given us the ability to do that when there's a private drive. So we think this is appropriate. We're also requesting the variance to the east street stub. There is a FEMA floodplain over there, which if you look on the aerial, nobody crosses that. There's a lot of flow there. You basically have to do a bridge. So connectivity across that is not really feasible. I spoke to Commissioner Coffey on this, and because we have some of the issues with the Wimberley Estates folks to the north, we want to leave the 10-foot buffer, and then any lot that's on that side, we want to raise that to 60 foot, 7,200 square foot minimum. And then we want to take the 10-foot buffer that we've had on the west side and make that 25 feet. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those. If you recall, 2 weeks ago, this property was recommended for approval for rezoning for R1 by this body, and your staff recommends approval, and we're in conformance with the comprehensive plan, so we request your approval today.
Let's be clear here. So on TE2, you're okay with 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You
Yes.
take issue with TE2.
We are fine with TE2. I just wanted to bring it up as the reason why we're basically asking for TE3.
Gotcha.
There is a private roadway that runs along the property line.
Then in addition to all of the changes mentioned in the TEs, you're also wanting to require that the property that is to the north, the northern part of your development is a larger minimum lot size. Is that what I'm understanding?
60-foot lots with 7,200 square foot lot size.
Okay. And so I guess we need to modify that through TE, or are those changes now reflected in the revised?
They're not reflected. That was a conversation I had with Commissioner Coffey, but we're willing to have that as a TE.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Commissioner Coffey, this is in your ward. Would you like to help introduce this item?
Okay. Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, we have had some considerable discussion on this. I know those folks who are to the north of this development in Wimberley Estates do have sizable lots, an acre or more each. So they are generally not extremely happy with these smaller lot sizes. The engineer and the developer has compromised with increasing those lot sizes some to 60 feet from the 50. And of course, I think this 25-foot buffer on the west side is a show of good faith. I am mindful that the tributaries off of Mustang Creek run through this property, and so I'm very, very interested in a lot of attention being paid to those items on number 4 that deal with flood control. And since this is to the south of the Mustang Creek area that occasionally floods up in the Wimberley Estates Edition, particularly down on the southeast, I don't see those concerns that were expressed in a couple of the letters being of significant concern, but certainly am cognizant of the fact that we need to pay particular attention to flood drainage and flood control. Certainly input from the Corps of Engineers is going to be a key to this development of this particular area. I don't have any other concerns that we've not discussed. I think being in agreement with those TEs, other than the alteration of TE number 3 that would do away with the stub to the west. I don't have any other issues, I think, with this particular preliminary plat.
Thank you, Commissioner Coffey. Before I do have another question, hoping that staff will be able to answer this question. Would you just can someone walk us through, for the sake of the neighbors of this community, the review that will occur between the preliminary plat phase and the final plat phase regarding drainage?
I'm sorry, I just was not able to hear that. I'm terribly sorry. My communications are so bad today.
That's okay, Commissioner Coffey. I was asking for staff, if someone could kind of briefly give this for the sake of the public, talk about what review is going to occur between the preliminary plat phase and the final plat phase, as far as the drainage issues that I know are going to be brought up here. Can someone do that? Or Brad, can you?
If city staff wants to chime in on this, I'm not sure if anybody's on, but basically what we have right now is a preliminary plat. This is a general idea of what we're going to do. What will come next is final plat and construction plans. At that point, all of our drainage will be reviewed by your city staff, city engineers, to make sure we're in compliance with the drainage ordinance as it is. Some are aware that the drainage ordinance is being updated to be a little more stringent. We're aware, we've talked to some of the neighbors over there that there's some flooding concerns. We've taken that into account, and we're going to be extra cautious in our design of this. We don't want anybody to flood either. So, but we haven't done extreme, drainage design yet, but that will come, and that will be at the final plat stage.
The final plat would also reflect, should we approve the preliminary plat, the final plat would also reflect the changes on the northern part of the development, and
yes, sir,
lots as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, this is Barry Lodge with Public Works. I thought I might just address a little bit further on your question concerning the drainage.
Please.
And other things that they will be required to do. I think Brad defined it fairly well. They will be required at the various stages of their final plat to provide a flood study for that tributary to the west. They will be crossing that a couple of times. And so that will be necessary as well in order to establish finished floor elevations for the lots that are adjacent to that creek. And so that'll be in addition to the normal drainage design that they would have to provide for approval through our technical review staff. And I would bring out, and I think Mr. Reed had brought this up as well. We have gotten a complaint of some flooding from one of the residents out there along Morgan Terrace. And so I just bring that up just to say, be cognizant of what's going on out there, and we'll be looking at that as well during the review process.
Yes, I appreciate that. I know Mustang Creek has been a hot topic out here, and probably will continue to be as we continue to expand these housing additions. It seems like nearly each time we have one, in some way, Morgan Creek is part of the picture. So I appreciate your extra attention and all those particular developments. I suppose we don't need a particular variance motion on this as it relates to technical evaluation 3, and that we would just be eliminating the street stub to the west and just leave the east in there. Is that correct?
I believe that they're requesting that there be no street stub required both on the east and the west side, and that's either way it would require that we vote separately for the variance.
If we agree, we would just leave out west and leave the east in there.
The only concern that we have is the fact that we are crossing Mustang Creek. Every time you put a street crossing through, it does give some extra flooding concerns, backwater effects and things like that from the box structures we have to put in.
Okay, and we do not need to add a TE as it relates to changing the lot size on the north. Is that correct?
We will need a TE.
All right.
So at this time, I think, are there other questions or comments from commission before we hear from the public?
I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Powers, if I have not been as focused perhaps as I should have been, as we were discussing this, we're eliminating any access to the east. And why is that? There's still a big chunk of residentially zoned, or perhaps I suppose it's possible it might develop commercially, although there's residential directly across the street to the east, across Morgan Road. I hate to see these. Already it is cut off from the development to the west. I hate to see us just, perforce eliminating any possibility of that access. Not crazy about that.
So we can agree to a street stub. The only concern that we have is the ability for us to actually tie those together. If you look, and if you can't really see it on this one, but if you look all through Mustang Creek, most people don't make that crossing. The Turnpike made the crossing, and they have some pretty substantial bridges to do that. And so as mentioned, there's flooding concerns. As soon as you start to get in there, we have to go back through the FEMA. That's a FEMA regulated floodplain. Floodway, so we'd have to do a FEMA letter, and so we can provide it. I just have some concerns if somebody else wants to have to tie into us. It would be almost, I think, a street stub to nowhere. So
your client does not own the property to the east.
He does not. No.
I'm willing to be guided by other commissioners on this. I am not as familiar with Morgan Creek and this area as others are.
Well, in this particular Morgan Creek issue, this is tributary 1 out of 9 tributaries that branch off of the main Mustang Creek. So it's not a major waterway, but it is a small tributary from the main Mustang Creek.
Thank you, Commissioner Coffey. I believe Mike Wilson has a comment. Go ahead, Mike.
All right.
Thank you. I was looking at it, and their property on their plan shows that they own out to the middle of Morgan Terrace, and their lots actually go out into what would be possibly some road right of way or whatever that cul-de-sac designation they're showing over there. So I was just concerned about that and whether that's still going to be an access road to get to those other dwellings, or what's going to happen with that west side.
So that's item number 2. We found that easement. We submitted it to your planning staff. Jared Martin has that one. And what it is there's right of way that's 25 feet either side of that property line. And so and that's what we'll move over, give the 25-foot common area on that side to allow that to stay in place.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Other questions, comments for Commission?
This is Commissioner Clare. Just in regards to the connection to the east, I would like to see basically an easement, a right of way, some portion of right of way reserved to there between on the east side between where it's noted as lots 15 and 13. Just have an easement potential connection there.
We can agree to that.
Okay.
Other questions from commissioners? All right, I think we're ready to hear from the public. There is one person signed up to speak, Mr. Hines, who I believe is speaking on behalf of neighbors. Mr. Hines, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Richard Hines, and I'm calling in regards to our neighborhood, which is Wimberley Estates. We currently have severe flooding issues on at least 4 to 6 properties that have joined Mustang Creek. We have concerns that the platting that has been submitted to you guys is going to add additional water runoff into Mustang Creek, which is an unmaintained creek and currently has blockages in it now. We have major concerns with the flooding issues and also the size of the lots that are being proposed. The small size of lots attributes to smaller homes that are going to be, ultimately they will be rental properties. that's going to affect our home values. Not to mention the fact that we already have major infrastructure problems with our roads and our schools. If you come out here on any given day, when school lets out or when school starts, you have major issues getting down any of these thoroughfares, Sarah Road and or 29th Street. So we have major issues with a lot of the stuff. There's quite a few of the photos of the traffic issues that we deal with. If we had any kind of an emergency, we have issues already. The infrastructure is just not here to add 269 homes to a 70-acre tract.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Just a quick question for you from me before I ask any commissioners have any questions for you. You heard the applicant mention that they're going to adjust the lot sizes for those northern lots on this development to 60 feet in 7,200 square feet in size. Are you in agreement with that? Is that sufficient to address some of your concerns as far as lot sizes?
Well, no, sir. That means that instead of having 5 homes across the back of my backyard, I'll only have 4. I mean, it really, we have a neighborhood here that is kind of unique to a lot of areas, and we have neighborhoods that are around us that are built closely to us. We're not expecting you to build acre tracts back here, but the build quality and the build design is something that we have major concern with. There is another neighborhood just to the northeast of us or northwest of us that was built by Home Creations. They are cracker box houses. I mean, I don't mean to knock anybody or knock anything, but the development size of 120 by 50 lot directly behind 1 acre and 1.5 acre properties just, to me, does not fit the area. You do have several other neighborhoods that are around us that, again, are smaller than us, and we're not requiring or asking or suggesting that this be developed in the same manner that we are. We are just asking that it be developed in a manner that is considerate to our values. I personally don't want 5 people living behind me. I mean, I know that we can't stop the development that is going on here. There's nothing we can do about it. But we do think that we have some sort of right to bring to attention. For one, the flooding is one of the biggest issues. If you look there on the plat, these homes here are right here. The 2 that are the longer lots have water that runs up into the backyard. If you look up here where it says tributary Mustang Creek, these 3 homes have literally had water inside of them, not just in their yard, but they have had water inside of them from this creek. The concern is with 269 homes being added to such a small area where we already have water flow issues, is that that's just going to increase it. I do back up right here to this neighborhood. I currently, the way that it is drawn is 1, 2, 3, looks like 4 homes across the back of my home. My neighbor, which is John, sitting here beside me, lives right to the east of me, and currently it is drawn to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically 5 or 6 homes behind him.
That's a wooded area with a drainage ditch that's cutting through that wooded area.
Yeah, and that is all wooded area that's got a drainage, an unmaintained drainage ditch that runs through it. If you were to come out and actually look at this tributary that's existing right now, you would find blockages currently in the tributary, which does attribute to this. But if we continue to add more water runoff to this, our concerns are is that we're going to continue to get more water into our homes here.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Are there questions from commissioners for Mr. Hines? Thank you, Mr. Hines. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Please press *6 at this time, or Alt-Y on your computer.
This is Commissioner Highsmith. I would just say, just so Mr. Hines understands, at least, depending on how the motion is made, which way I'll vote. For me, I understand your concern on the lot sizes. I've done significant effort to chase down that question. It's my understanding both from the state's, oh my gosh, what are they called? Not the assessors, but the people that assess the value of a lot. Who am I thinking of?
That's the assessor.
That's the assessor.
Yeah, that would be the county.
Not the county assessor, but the individual
thinks
assessor.
appraiser.
Anyway, appraiser. There we go.
Appraiser.
Yeah. I spoke with the state appraisal office and talked to several of the board members, and they've all assured me that home values, this is not a situation where these would ever be comped to each other. We've seen no evidence through a lot of research that lot size has any impact on home values. Matter of fact, we find the opposite. Generally, any new development in an area, of course, creates additional demand, which increases home values. So on that item, I hate to say, but that's just not an issue for me. On the flooding as well, we've got a lot of systems in place at the city, which I know probably haven't been working so well to your benefit yet, but they are the system we have. What I would recommend is that you do talk with your city council person for sure about these issues. As a recommending body, we're really guided by a lot of the documents that supersede our authority or kind of guide our authority, I guess I would say. Anyway, for me, I mean, that's just me. Just wanted to quickly touch on your items and make sure that you understood why I am likely to vote to approve this item today.
Other comments and questions from commissioners at this time?
Hello, gentlemen.
Other comments and questions from commissioners at this time? Or excuse me, we were at looking to the public. Sorry. Please go ahead, sir. Please say your name and address for the record.
Commissioners, are you speaking with me?
Yes, sir. Please state your name
and
address.
I'm Kevin Purcell. Yes, hi.
You have 5
I
minutes, sir.
I have the house at 9989 Southwest 44th. And that would be at the south end of this proposed addition. We have 3 acres and pretty much will be surrounded on 3 sides by this development. And right across the street, all these residents that are along 44th and again down Morgan Terrace, we have 3 to 5 acres and more land along there that we enjoy. And I love neighbors. I really do. But I don't think I have enough love for 269 times probably 4 people in each house and the traffic that's going to be involved with that. I would please encourage you guys to consider, and the developer also, to put in larger homes and lots there, make the area much more attractive than a 50-foot wide lot with a 5 foot on one side of the house, then a driveway that's 18 to 20 foot. That leaves you 23 feet to your neighbor's driveway. That's pretty dang narrow. I know that there are homes built on this size lot. In some areas not far from us, but there are also much nicer homes on larger lots very close. Wimberley Estates is certainly one. And some of the other Wimberleys. I don't know all the addition names there. I'm sorry. I don't pay that much attention to them. But there's Marabella, just on 44th, on the north side of 44th, just east of Morgan Road. That's a nice addition. Bigger homes, bigger lots, not as crowded, more open, more welcoming feeling. Continue down on 44th toward County Line and Council. There are a bunch of what Mr. Hines described as cracker box houses. And they're pretty crowded. There's enough room for 2 cars in the driveway, maybe 3. The third car will be blocking the sidewalk. And 1 car maybe to park in front of the yard. Now, a lot of these smaller houses, they're going to have 2 adults, 2 or 3 kids probably. I love kids, but I don't love them riding a skateboard down the driveway with parked cars where I can't see where they're coming from. And I don't know, our school system out here is clogged as it is. And it's not an Oklahoma City issue, it's a Mustang schools issue. They built 3 new schools in the last 4 years or less, passed a $180 million bond issue to do it. And they've just recently turned down another $10.9 million bond issue because I think they're kind of getting tired of getting bonded to death. That's part of my concern. And really our enjoyment of use out here is going to be disrupted quite a bit if these lots are built at this size. And that's one of my issues. I'm concerned about our neighbors, of course, to the north. I've spoken with everybody in that area that I could reach. My wife and I put my oxygen on, and we went last Sunday or a week from last Sunday and knocking on doors, meeting people and asking them what they thought about this. Everybody's like, bigger lots would be fine.
Sir, just
small
1
lots.
minute left. I apologize. Just 1 minute left for your time.
Okay. Well, I'll start rambling if you let me. So basically, that's my concern. Yeah. You know, really, I'd like to see the city buy it and turn it into another park like the one there north of Hefner. The end. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Powers.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to say to all of the people who've come to speak to us today how much I appreciate hearing from them and having their input and perspective on this. And I want to be really careful how I say this because I don't mean it to be a gotcha or to sound condescending in any way. But we had a hearing to rezone this property to R1 on the 8th of April, as I recall, from the staff report. I must confess that the hearing itself does not stick out in my mind. Were any of you gentlemen with us on the 8th of April to provide your input?
I, ma'am, was not notified of any platting or meeting regarding this until the initial plat or the preliminary plat was brought to my attention. So no, ma'am, I was not involved with it.
So the
Otherwise, I would have voiced my opinion then.
The meeting on the 8th of April would have been to rezone. You don't think you received notice of that?
Ma'am, I'm quite positive I did not receive that.
Okay. The other gentleman, were you with us on the 8th? Well, I'll just say, I really am sorry if in fact you were not with us on the 8th. I do very, very much appreciate your input and hearing your perspective. But the issues with respect to the size of the lots and the number of the lots that will be permitted is really something that was settled to some extent by the rezoning of the property. It is currently.
I apologize, but I missed that. I did not get an invitation to that party.
No need for you to apologize to me. I feel very, very concerned if in fact you did not receive notice to that party, because we need the input of citizens on these issues.
Yeah, I of course I was jaw dropped actually, and not knowing what to do. I didn't know where to start. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. The fact is I've never been involved in this kind of thing before. And I didn't know what to do. So I went around and knocked on some doors. And this is all new to me. And I actually know the people sideways that are selling the properties. I knew George Morgan. And
Could I suggest to you then that if this property was rezoned by or recommended for approval by us on the 8th of April, that means it has not yet gone to City Council. And I would strongly recommend that you contact your City Council person about your concerns for this property.
Well, I hate
the other day, and
money wasted by the engineers and everybody. Go ahead, Richard. I apologize. Go ahead.
I did reach out to them last week, and I've still not received a call back. I mean, I'm not knocking our government too terribly bad, but our government system is not proper. I mean, I was not notified of the rezoning request. I have reached out to my city councilman. I have not received a call back. I also emailed.
Your city council person is very, very new, so that may be part of the problem. There's a lot to get up to speed with. Your city council person was just recently elected, so I would encourage you to continue to pursue that contact.
Well, in the meantime, though, we're fixing to get railroaded and have 269 rental homes built behind us. I mean, that is the trend over time for homes of this size and of this magnitude. Are first homeowners, and then they're purchased by investment groups, which turn them into rental properties, which are not maintained. And then at that point, I've got people trying to jump my fence and steal what's in my backyard.
Let's go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Hines. And I'm sure we are all happy to help you as far as, and the staff that we have here is happy to help you in helping you connect with your new city council person as well, because we do know that there is an opportunity for you and your neighbors' voices to be heard about the rezoning. So that's not done yet. You still have an opportunity, as Commissioner Powers said, to have your voice heard, which could, if the rezoning is not approved, could impact this plat and stop this plat altogether. So just wanted you to be aware that that is still an option. We're happy to help you with regard to making contact with your city council person as well. So I'm happy to do that.
Mr. Hines, the email that you're using for your council person, is it ward3@okc.gov?
I don't know. I tried to reach out to her through telephone call.
Okay. If you got an email, try it. Or you can, I give you a number to call.
823-5580.
And Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Hines, this is Commissioner Highsmith again. I'd just let you know you might be careful about stereotyping renters as thieves. I myself am a renter.
Sir, I'm just speaking to my own personal experience. That's why I purchased an acreage and moved away from areas like that. I'm not stereotyping every renter as a thief, but in lower income areas, you tend to have issues. I mean, and that's a fact. You can agree with me or disagree with me. That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. I think
I will disagree.
Well, and thank you, Commissioner Highsmith. Let's have a chance for everybody if there's anybody else left who has not spoken from the public, and just so that you all know, we have heard the well-articulated concerns regarding drainage and flooding from Mr. Hines. We've heard about the concerns regarding lot size. We've heard about the traffic issues. We've heard about the school overcrowding issues. Is there anyone from the public who has not already spoken who would like to be heard on this issue?
Yes, my name is Marlene.
Yes,
I live backed up on the north side of the plat that's being proposed.
Could we have your address for the record and your full name, please, ma'am?
Marlene Bradbury, 10016 Southwest 36th Street. You know, I have been out here for 17 years. I have $500,000 invested in my property. And to have Cracker Jack boxes with a bunch of siding that I can look at a half a mile from my house, driving to my house, falling apart. I pay over $6,000 in my taxes every year for my property here to have little houses backed up to me. I request that they take that back north end and make those into 1 acre lots, exactly at what they are adjoining to, so that we're not looking at 4 or 5 houses behind our houses. We pay dearly in our taxes, and we have a big investment in our houses. I don't agree with the 60-foot by 120 lot. I'm a home builder. They're going to be about 20 foot from my fence line. I have a chain link fence up to my house right now. Now I'm going to have to invest another $10,000 to put fence back there so I don't have to look at that crap. When they zone these properties, they should take into consideration of the investments that people have adjoining to them. They should have 1 acre lots on that back north end. I am not for this plat. My investment's going downhill. They should reconsider that 60 by 120. They should be at least 1 acre. And that's what I have to say on the situation. I don't mind the homes back there, but I don't want 6 of them backed up to my 1 acre property. They should be 1 acre backed up to me. And that's my take on it.
Commissioners, may I speak again?
No, sir, not at this time. Not at this time, sir. Thank you, Ms. Bradford. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has not spoken that would like the opportunity to speak on this issue? We've heard about lot size, drainage and flooding, traffic, and school overcrowding. Is there anything new that anyone would like to add to those comments for those who have not already had the chance to speak?
Chairman Pennington?
Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Boyd in the Council Support Office.
Yes, sir.
I was going to give Mr. Hines and any other people, I've already talked to Mr. Purcell, but Mr. Hines, I'm Councilwoman Young's assistant here in City Hall. My email is ward3@okc.gov. My phone number is 405-297-2402.
Could you repeat that, Boyd, one more time, the email address and the phone number for Mr.
Sure.
Hines?
Ward3@okc.gov. 405-297-2402.
Thank you, sir. I received it. I do have an additional neighbor here that he's sitting here with me. He couldn't get the meeting to go on his computer, so he came over here. I believe he would like to speak on.
My name is John Lee. I've visited with the developer as well. And
Could we get your address for the record, sir? And you have 5 minutes.
John Leach, Leacha, 3640 Clay Drive, Yukon. I back up to what is depicted on their plat as lot 38 and adjacent lots there too. The creek has a tremendous drainage ditch and wooded area behind me right there. And it has been most notable in these heavy rains over the last several years, where there is tremendous drainage into that creek. We had a bridge at one time over that creek. It actually washed the bridge away. There were telephone poles across the creek. So, I mean, it's some major issues that need to be addressed. We recently had a sewer line that was planted to go to the development onto the west over that way, and they didn't sod the creek bank area that they raised a pipeline across. And, you know, it just flooded and is filling up the creek, which is going to make it more detrimental. And I just think that really this this situation should be delayed until we can get a good, true picture of the drainage that is going to be created. You can look on that creek and how close they are to adjacent lots. I mean, there's 7 or 8 that are, it's going to be close to the houses that are going to be built. So please, I would recommend that you delay this approval until we get a good picture of what this drainage situation is going to create and give us an accurate picture.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Is there anyone else from the public who has not already spoken? And we, again, just to remind us all, we have already heard about the issues with lot size, drainage and flooding, traffic, and school overcrowding. If there's any new items, for anyone that has not previously spoken, would like an opportunity to address the committee. *6 on your phone, Alt-Y on your computer. I think, Mr. Purcell, I can give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, the other thing is that we are also on acreages, like our friends and neighbors to the north. Everyone that was sent a letter along 44th, and the people again on Morgan Terrace, Mrs. Limley, that lives off Morgan Road. A lot of these people are not able to attend the meeting. They simply don't have a home computer or it's not up to date. I couldn't join the meeting because my home computer didn't have the latest software. If this was an open public meeting where people could attend, there'd be a lot more people there today. That's my conclusion for today. But I urge you guys to table this issue for another time, get the studies done on the flooding situation to the north and east of this platted area. And again, almost 1,000 new people on a single, a double lane road everywhere around there. Morgan Road, 44th we got a brand new road on 44th last year. It's just a 2-lane road. Same on Sarah Road is a 2-lane. I believe part of Southwest 29th is. I don't go down that often because of the dangerous traffic for the school. But anyhow, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Purcell. At this time, is there anyone from the public who has not had an opportunity to speak who would like to address the committee? *6 on your phone, Alt-Y on your computer. All right, at this point, are there questions, comments, thoughts from commissioners? I will say this, I think it may be in our best interest, and I'm open to whatever the will of the commission is, but I think it might be wise to take a continuance until the final zoning is approved by the city council, is my opinion. Other thoughts, commissioners, comments?
What we recommended approval on the rezone, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm neither here nor there on it. I just feel like since we voted for approval, I do think it, it has to be approved at city council for our full approval of this to even matter. But I don't see necessarily a reason in that regard to not do it, but if we want to continue it, just continue the conversation, because obviously there's a lot of discussion on it. Up to the fellow commissioners here.
Other thoughts, commissioners?
This is Commissioner Clare. I mean, my general thought is that if the residents want the opportunity to voice opposition on the rezoning at city council, that maybe we give them the opportunity to do that before, press pause on this, and give them the opportunity to do that, and then possibly revisit this, at a later date.
I agree with Commissioner Clare.
Commissioner Hinkle agrees with Commissioner Clare. Commissioner Coffey, it's your ward. What are your thoughts?
I think probably we ought to hit the pause button on this.
Brad, thoughts on waiting till the 13th?
I do have a little bit of an issue with that. These should have been heard at the same time. And so this happens all the time where we will approve a preliminary plat based on your recommendation for approval. And if this doesn't go forward at city council, this preliminary plat can't be built. If it is your desire to have this heard later, we can wait. But, I think it sets a precedence of this, and that's not, in my understanding, that's not the way that this usually functions. And so I don't want to make this a huge issue, but, this happens all the time where a zoning is not in place, but this body will recommend a preliminary plat to be approved. So
that is accurate. And it is accurate also that we would not be able to enforce the plat unless the underlying zoning was approved. So
yes, we could move forward with the final plat plan
today. That would not prevent the stop of, this could still be stopped entirely by the rezoning not being approved. That is true. Go, Commissioner Coffey, did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
I don't know that there's anything that we can do that would satisfy the neighbors of Wimberley Estates to the north. Has this not already gone to city council for zoning?
The vote, they have not voted yet. We just voted on the 8th. So I think it's 6 weeks usually. So I guess they'd be voting sometime next month.
Next month?
Staff, please correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct.
Thank
It
you.
would be May, let's see, 25th would be the vote.
I'm sorry, what was the date?
Can I weigh in here just for a moment? If the applicant is willing to take the continuance, fine. If the applicant prefers to move forward, I think it is true and realistic that in fact, if this matter had been ready for hearing on the 8th, it would have been approved just like the zoning was approved, very likely, and would have gone forward, with to council as a companion item. And yes, if the zoning fails, then the plat would fail. The one piece of this that really gives me some pause is the notice issue for the neighbors. A number of people that have appeared here today have indicated that they did not have notice of the zoning, but from their description of where they live, it seems to me that they definitely should have had notice of the zoning. I don't ever like to have this kind of gotcha thing where it's like, you missed your chance, you're out of luck. But this is still pending for council. So I would really very much, I don't have a problem with this going forward just the way it would have if it were a companion item. If the applicant is insistent on that, I really would kind of like for them to take the time and give these people a little chance to be heard on the zoning, especially in view of these issues. But when the zoning on this case goes forward to council, I think staff needs to be able to give a very specific response to the issue of the notice. Either the notice did include all these people and for whatever reason they didn't realize it when the trash is all the other extra mail they get or whatever, or they're not listed as the property owner for some reason on the tax rolls or whatever. I think the issue of the notice on the zoning needs to be addressed. This case is unclear to me for that one reason alone.
Well, I certainly don't disagree with that.
Commissioner Powers, I have a list of the notices that went out. I know Mr. Hines mentioned that he did not receive notice. We do have him on the list of people that did receive notice, and I have his address here. So that may have been a case where it got lost in the mail or in the recycle bin. We can sort of look into additional, if other folks feel like they didn't receive notice, we can certainly look into that.
Well, Thank you, Jeff. And I think at this point, the choice is whether or not we feel comfortable enough to go ahead and approve the preliminary plat or move forward with the continuance. So I guess I'll leave this to Commissioner Coffey to kind of make the motion unless there's further discussion. Commissioner.
Okay, is that May the what?
13th.
18th?
13th.
I'm sorry, I just can't hear.
That's okay. It's the 13th, and we can correct it on the record. So you can go ahead and make the motion.
May the 13th?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I make a motion that case number C-7283, preliminary plat of Morgan Glen, be continued until May the 13th.
The motion before the body is that C-7283 be continued to May 13th Planning Commission meeting. Is there a second? The second from Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes at this time. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Hinkle votes yes. Commissioner Coffey, are you able to vote online?
Yes.
Great.
Commissioner Coffey, are you voting aye?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the motion carries. The continuance is granted. And I'm glad Boyd was able to join and help connect the neighbors with their new city council person. Thank you to Boyd for that. I believe we are ready.
Mr. Chair, this is Rusty.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I've got to leave early. I had let Chairman Cravens know, but I forgot that you were going to be chair today, so I apologize. I have to leave early.
That's okay. He told me. I'm so sorry, Commissioner Ford. You have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks. You too. Thanks. Bye.
We are ready for item 16, C-7288. Mr. Buck.
Yes, this is a final plat of Scissortail Crossing Estates, located south of Southwest 29th Street and west of South Check Hall Road.
And I believe the applicant is Mr. Grubbs. Mr. Grubbs, you recognize the 5 minutes.
Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. This is a minor subdivision plat, property zoned RA2. So we're submitting a final plat that's in conformance with RA2 requirements. We agree with the TE and we'd ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Grubbs. This is an item from Ward 3. Commissioner Coffey, you're very popular today. Would you like to lead us in the discussion on this item? Let's see if she's there. Commissioner Coffey?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, I have not received comments or concerns from anyone, and I don't have any issues with this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Coffey.
Again, we've got Mustang Creek in the picture here, but I don't see any comments from staff that cause concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Coffey. Any other questions or comments from commissioners for the applicant? All right. Is there anyone from the public who's wanting to be heard on this item? We don't have anyone signed up to speak. *6 on your phone and Alt-Y on your computer. Seeing none, I believe we're ready for a motion unless there's further discussion from commissioners. Commissioner Coffey.
The applicant is in agreement with the staff recommendations and the technical evaluations.
Mark?
Yes, I thought I said that. Sorry if I didn't.
That's all good.
Okay. You may have. My communications are just bad, so if there are no questions or for anyone, then I would move approval of the C-7288.
Commissioner Coffey has moved for approval of the C-7288. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Privet. You ready to vote? Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote on this item?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Hinkle votes yes. Commissioner Coffey?
Yes.
Commissioner Coffey votes yes. And the motion carries unanimously. We're ready for consideration of
Thank
item
you.
17. Thanks, Mark. Item 17, C7290, Mr. Buck.
This is the final plat of Rose Creek Plaza, located north of Northwest 164th Street and west of North May Avenue, along with a variance to section 5.4.2.E.5.
Thank you. The applicant is Kinley Horn. Are they here?
Yes, this is Stephen Cooks here, Kimley Horn, representing the applicant.
All right. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, 14101 Wireless Way, Building A, Suite 150. So this is a plat for commercial development at May and Northwest 164th. It is in compliance with the applicable PUDs for the property. There are 3 TEs listed in the staff report, and we agree with all 3. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Let's start with, well, we don't have our Ward 8 commissioner here. Are there any commissioners with questions or comments for the applicant? I did visit with our chairman, Commissioner Cravens. He said he was in support of the applicant. Any questions from commission? Seeing no questions from commission, I think we're ready to hear from the public. We have Mr. Curtis West with a hand raised. Mr. West, could you give us your name and address for the record? And you have 5 minutes. Mr. West, can you hear us?
*6 to unmute if you're on your phone.
I believe he's unmuted too. It's Alt-Y too, Mr. West, but I think you're unmuted on our system. Okay, well, maybe Mr. West is unavailable, but we can give him the opportunity to be heard with citizens to be heard. Are there any other members of the public who are wishing to be heard on this item? *6 on your phone, Alt-Y on your computer.
No, he was on here earlier because I answered a question from him.
Yeah, I thought so too. You're right, Commissioner Privet. So I thought he was able to communicate with him. Well, seeing no other comments, I think we are ready to entertain a motion unless there's further comments. And I cannot make the motion. We have to vote on the variance first. Anybody?
I guess I would have one question on this just for staff, and then I can make a motion. On the variance, I guess I didn't think that private drives were a concern whenever we were naming these. I mean, is that, obviously we have big discussions when we're renaming a public street. I didn't know that. I guess maybe this is just me being stupid here, but I didn't know that we cared about private drives. Maybe that's not a good question or not well stated as a question, but yeah, I'm just looking for a little bit of color, I guess, from staff on if we care or not.
And Mr. Chair, it looks like Mr. West is having problems with his audio. He's asking another question on the Q&A.
Oh, okay. Can we? Is he able to?
It doesn't appear that he's connected by phone, but he may be using both.
We'd like to hear from him.
All right.
Go ahead. Can anyone from staff address Commissioner Highsmith's comments?
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Is that Mr. West?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. West, can I make you pause for just 1 second so we don't lose Commissioner Highsmith's question?
Absolutely.
Can we get a response from staff regarding Commissioner Highsmith's questions about private drive?
Could you rephrase the question or repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Please go ahead, Mr. Hussman.
My question was just on the naming of private drives. I'm sure I've probably sat on a case of this nature before, but I'm used to us caring about public drives, but not necessarily private drives. I guess I was just curious if staff, could help give me a reason to care about how we name a private drive.
So normally the subdivision regulations, let me back up. The subregs differentiate between public streets, private streets, and then also private drives. Public and private streets are built to a certain standard where they have a 50 or 60 foot right of way, depending on what it is, and then a certain width of pavement with curb and gutter if it's urban, and then grass swales if it's rural. A private drive a lot of times doesn't have any kind of a utility easement or right of way, if you will, that's wider than the drive itself. So they tend to be substandard, and so the subregs generally don't want them to be named and don't want us to address off of them. In this particular case, they're building the private drive to a greater standard than a typical public street or even private street. And so it's going to appear like a street when people drive past it. And so we thought that in this case, they might want to go ahead and name it, and then we could use it for addressing purposes if we wanted to.
Thank you, Jared.
Sure.
Mr. West, we apologize. Glad you can join us. Please, you have 5 minutes. Please give us your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Curtis West. I live at 16601 Riverbirch Lane. My property butts up to that plat number 1 on the screen. And my question is, I read through everything, and maybe I missed it, but I'm not sure I got what is going to separate my property from the commercial area. Is it berm? Is it fence?
Mr. Cooksey, are you able to respond to that question?
Yes. So per the PUD that's in place for that property requires a 10-foot green belt. Now we are exceeding that, so we're 15 to 20 feet in most places of landscape area, and it does require trees planted, I believe, on either 20 or 25 foot centers.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. West.
Yeah, that's really my question. My only question is I wasn't sure how that was going to be separated, and I believe that answers it. So that there'll be 20 feet, but it won't have a fence, and there won't be a berm. It'll be trees, correct?
Correct. Yeah, landscape buffer with trees.
Okay. And that easement is that 15 to 20 feet in the area where my house is?
Yeah, that's correct. That's basically from the property line to the closest improvement, which would be a closest parking or anything like that.
Okay.
And there are utility
right,
in that area as well. Yes.
Yeah, correct. I know that the golf course uses that area to travel to and from the golf course a lot. And what I don't know is, will that continue, or will that be shut off to the Rose Creek facility to be able to access the golf course from the end of my cul-de-sac?
Well, yeah, based on the grade differentials there, I don't think that they'll be able to access it anymore. They're like they're currently doing.
Because that's a drainage area right now. There is a underground drain there, and I had always thought that this would be a great opportunity to put a cart path / drain where you actually have a concrete duct all the way through there. It hasn't been done in the past because of the utility, but in this case, it might be a good opportunity because they really need. They've always used that area, and when they couldn't use the area, they went through my driveway and through my yard to get to the golf course. But it'd be real handy to have a concrete duct all the way through there that serves as a drain to the lake and also a place for those vehicles to cross.
Yeah, to address that, I mean, we are providing a concrete flume to pick up the drainage coming off the end of that cul-de-sac. Now, you could possibly double as a cart path, but it's really not designed for that. It's designed as a flume. So we're at least handling the drainage.
Okay. Well, that might be something if you have a chance to discuss it with the Tier 18 or something, that they might want to go in on that, because that they seem to need to have that access. But that's all. That's the only question I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to be heard on this item? *6, Alt Y. Great. Any other comments or questions from commissioners before we entertain the motion first on the variance? All right, looking for a motion on the variance, folks. I cannot make the motion.
I'll make a motion. This is Commissioner Highsmith, and I make a motion to recommend approval on a C-7290 in regards to the variance to section 5.4.2.E.5 of the subdivision regulations, allowing the applicant to name private drives.
For the sake of parliamentary clarity, we're voting first on the variance to the subdivision regulation for 5.4.2.E.5. Is there a second? It's not on PrimeGov right now also, Paula.
Commissioner Hinkle, second.
And we've got the enthusiastic second of Commissioner Hinkle, whenever it's available.
She is working on it.
My apologies. Hold on.
I saw her. She was in Jared's office talking.
I was making my rounds.
I'm just messing with you.
Is this on the, this is for the variance
Yes, ma'am.
approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Ready for movers?
And the second is by Commissioner Hinkle, if you can add him to it.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
There we go. Excellent. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
And all commissioners can go ahead and cast their votes. Do we need to have a voice vote from Commissioner Coffey, Paula?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Coffey, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Coffey votes yes.
Thank you.
And that motion carries to approve the variance. Commissioner Highsmith on the motion on approval.
Sure. I make a motion to recommend approval on C-7290, subject to the technical evaluations to City Council.
Well, with the final plat, actually, we are the final authority, so we're voting on final approval.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've got the power.
It's
today.
so hard, you're trying to say the right thing and then you don't. Yeah.
It's all good.
I make a motion for approval of C-7290, subject to the technical evaluation.
Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes at this time. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Enthusiastically, yes, please.
Enthusiastic yes from Commissioner Hinkle. Commissioner Coffey, how do you vote? Commissioner Coffey, are you with us?
Yes.
You vote yes on this item or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Coffey votes yes. All votes have been cast. The motion carries. We are now, item 18 and item 19 have both been continued. We're now on to item 20, the consideration of the comp plan amendment. Go ahead, Mr. Butler.
This is a comp plan amendment considering a map amendment There's the plan, removing the heavy industrial land use topology area layer from the urban and low intensity base LUDA, and this is located south of I-240 and west of Sunny Lane Road. And Kim Cooper Hart is going to take us through this briefly.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kim.
Here we have a zoning case that was heard by your body on March 11th and passed, and these two just didn't make it through. So the purpose of this request is to remove the heavy industrial to allow for mixed use and dwelling units in the development. Carry on. You can see the subject site here on the larger LUDA map. And here again. And this is straight from our plan. Tells you what the heavy industrial layer is there for, and the underlying layer, which is urban low intensity, is what would be remaining when we lift this layer. It is served by city utilities and fire. We'd like to do that. And here are the existing conditions surrounding this parcel. Here are the land uses surrounding the parcel. And our recommendation is to lift the HI LUDA layer, which would bring those zoning compatible with the comprehensive plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kim. Are there any questions from commissioners? And we can start with Commissioner Privet in leading us in this discussion.
Right. I think it was pretty self-explanatory because of the PUD we approved a couple of weeks ago. That's going to be needed, I think.
It's true. Any other questions, comments from commissioners? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard on this item? We don't have anyone signed up to speak. Alt star 6 on your phone, Alt Y on your computer if you'd like to be heard on this item. Seeing none, I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
I'll move for recognition of approval of a comprehensive plan amendment.
Commissioner Privet recommends approval of the comp plan amendment as presented. Is there a second?
Out of your meeting.
See if it's on Prime Guide.
Having some issues. Hold on just a moment. For some reason, it's not giving me the motion. Here we go.
We're looking for a second. Second from Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes at this time. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Yes, but he's not enthusiastic. Let the record reflect that. He's not as enthusiastic about this change in the comp plan as he was about the last one. Commissioner Coffey, how do you vote?
I have voted yes.
Commissioner Coffey votes yes. Don't like comp plan amendments, Commissioner Hinkle?
Love them. I'm excited to see this project go to, I mean, the softball fields getting redone and the housing going in. That's going to be a neat project.
That's going to be really cool. I wish we could see follow-up pictures because that is going to, I think that's going to be really interesting when that's finished as well. I don't believe that we have any further items for consideration. So we are now on to communications and reports. I don't believe we have any reports from planning commission committees unless I'm mistaken, commissioners. Then we're just looking to hear from planning commission members. Are there any members who are wishing to be heard at this time?
This is Commissioner Clare. I got a couple of things.
Please.
First of all, I always enjoy Commissioner Hinkle's voice votes as if he's being asked if he would like a refill on his chips and salsa.
Yes, please.
I do like that as well.
The second thing, I'm not sure how many of you follow ULI and their events, but I wanted to let you know that they've got an upcoming workshop kind of geared for public officials. It's a virtual workshop, and a couple of key things that they're gonna feature is just evaluating the economic benefits of risks of different land uses and building types, and then responding to conflicting businesses, community, and public sector needs and goals. So if any of those pique your interest, I believe it's almost a day virtual conference on May 28th. So if you guys have any interest, I can pass along further information, or I'm sure planning staff has the same info as well.
I'm very interested, so please count me in
for
that.
Is that open to the public, or do you have to be a member?
So it is free to members, and it is open to non-members. There's a small fee for non-members.
Cool. That sounds great. Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Clare?
That does it for me.
Anything else from other commission members wishing to be heard? Anything else from commissioners?
I would like to compliment the chair for his debut. You did well.
Oh, thank
Not
you.
easy
I
to
was
juggle,
worried.
I know.
Enthusiastic thumbs up.
Thank you. I just spent all day worried, so I'm glad it turned out okay here. So thank you. Anything else, commissioners? Then we'll move on to planning department.
Yes, don't want to make your job too easy, Mr. Chair, but we did have a question. That's one of the reasons Paula was a little late on that one case. So on case number, or item number 15, the continuance, was it the intent to continue that till after the city council's decision? I believe we continued it to May 13th, but the council doesn't consider that until later in the month. So and obviously everybody who was concerned with that case is no longer here. So we may want to continue that, show it as continued on the agenda. I just wanted to see what the intent was.
Well, I was thinking, if since Brad was pretty resistant to wanting us to continue, I thought maybe here's an incentive. He's got 3 weeks since, we're at a weird point. He could actually, theoretically, he could work on addressing some of these issues now and calm the neighbors down. I think that if he was able to do that between now and the 13th, maybe the commission may feel differently. And so I'm open to that, but commissioners, what do you all think? We can always rescind the motion as we did last week to give it a new continuance timeline.
We just wanted to make sure that the dates were right and the commission's intent was followed.
I'd only say, considering the notification issues that were discussed on that case, that might be something that would further agitate some residents, but
So you think it'd be better to wait until the 22nd so that there's no confusion with the fact that city council is going to vote first before us? Is that what you're saying, Commissioner Privet?
Yeah. This is Susan. I think I would suggest just leaving it as it is, since the people that were there for that item have already left, and they may not have gotten the notice unless they went back and looked at the meeting.
Yeah,
So,
and I know one guy specifically asked, 1:30 on Thursday.
Right. So I would leave it there, and then if you need to continue it again, then you can. But
It's a good point. Anybody have any counter thoughts to that, or are we good with leaving it as is?
I think we need to leave it as is just because of how we dealt with it. It was certainly my understanding that we were deciding to continue it until after council had acted. But since we didn't make that absolutely clear, and since those folks are no longer with us, it's a simple item to continue it again on the 13th if we need to.
Yeah. I don't know how to ensure that these people get notice of this zoning. I just think that sometimes it doesn't happen. I'm going to check with a couple of people that live out there. and make sure that they got notice. I have a couple friends that live in that area, because I want to make sure they get notice of this zoning hearing with council.
Jeff, how do you guys figure out the radius of the 300 foot? You know, is it just an arbitrary point on the parcel of land, or 300 foot from the edges?
It's 300 foot.
The whole
from
boundary.
edges. Yeah.
Around, right, okay.
Yeah, the whole boundary. And I will point out that the zoning requirement is 300 foot from the boundary. The plating requirement is only 100 foot from the boundary. So typically there's less people notified about the plat. You know, in a case like this, with the properties as big as they are, it's probably all the same people, but there is a difference there.
I didn't realize that.
Okay.
I think I just assumed.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. Okay.
Commissioner Coffey, Jeff does have the list of people who received notes. So,
I do too. We all do. I think we just got an email.
Yeah.
If you ever want to see a list of who received the notices, we can send that out on any case at any time. Just let us know. Because, you know,
okay.
a lot of people, I think, you know,
okay,
get the notices, but they end up in the recycle bin. You know, they look like junk mail. I don't know. I'm sure that a fair amount of that happens. But you know, there may be cases where the county data is incorrect, has an extra zero on an address, or who knows.
Yeah.
But we can always.
Who would I contact? Who would I contact?
Yeah, if you're looking for, you can just contact Cindy. If you're looking for the list of who was noticed.
And I will also say on this one, they were scheduled to go at the same time, so they would have received 2 notices at the same time for the zoning and the plat. And then we had to continue the plat because there was an error with the notice, just a calculation error inside the notice. So it was potentially misleading. So they deferred it so we could send them another notice. So they received a 3rd notice, you know, a second one about the plat to correct that error. So that's kind of where this one went.
I don't know whether this is a good suggestion or not, but the city of Moore and the city of Edmond both require you put up a 4x8 sign with a notice on there saying that there's a zoning change and here's where you find out about it a month prior to it ever happening. On the subject piece of property, to where any neighbor driving by has a chance to read it.
I think that's worth consideration.
Yeah. I would think that all of those folks that are in that block just north would receive it. And 3 of those people that spoke today indicated they lived in that block just north of the development. 3 of the 5, so they certainly should receive it. Okay. Well, good. That's good information. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. And I agree with Commissioner Hinkle. I think that's worthy of some further discussion as well.
I believe I have considered that. I've heard, and maybe Janice would remember. There's been talk, and maybe it was just internally within the city staff, but you know, there are pros and cons with that. I believe Edmond, although I'm not sure, I think they require the applicant to pay to put the sign up, and there's often, you know, there are pros and cons. I've heard, you know, the cost of the sign and the vandalism. I guess there's vandalism issues, and others that, you know, if we wanted to look into that, we could certainly kind of get you a list of pros and cons.
The city of Moore actually has a sign vendor that they make you use. So we were trying to rezone a piece of property and had the ability to make our own sign. They wouldn't even let us make our own sign. We had to use their guy. But, you know, $300 on a $10 million piece of property is not all that big.
So you trying to drum up some business, Matt? Is that what you're saying?
No, I do not want to be responsible for any of that. Thank you very much.
We'll make sure you're not the sign vendor.
Enthusiastically don't want to be responsible for it.
That's all I have, Mr. Pennington.
Thank you. Development Services? JJ? I'm going to take that as a no. Municipal Counselor's Office, Susan?
Yes, I do have Craig Keith with our office, who is the Public Works Attorney. If anybody would like an explanation on the new language that we have proposed for the closings at this time, I don't.
Does anybody have any specific questions about that right now?
That's the new TE language?
Mm-hmm.
No, not really. It just seemed really lawyery to me, so.
Well, my only question is, I mean, I think it could, is there a way it could be worded, like the way that it's worded right now, to most people? I mean, essentially what the city is doing is they're asking to reserve the right, for an easement until the time of building permit. Whereas the way that it's stated right now, they're basically stating that it doesn't seem to me like they're reserving the right. I'm just wondering if it could be massaged a little bit to be a little bit more, seem a little bit more flexible. So did anyone else have that same thought?
I as a weighing in as a lawyer, I think it is a little confusing. It starts off by saying it's a perpetual easement, but then it says until such time as. I understand. I would like actually for staff to give us a little bit of a briefing. Frankly, I'll just say right now, I'd prefer that not be today. But before we start applying this just across the board, I would like some kind of an explanation and a presentation about why this is being done, why it's being done now, what the hope of accomplishment is, what it is they're really trying to accomplish. And then with the help of our chairperson, who's like one more lawyer, to discuss this and talk it through. It is very lawyery, there's no question about that. But I would like a little bit of time to think about it and also to discuss it.
Commissioner Powers, are you saying let's do a study session before a meeting?
Well, that would be one option. Yeah, that would be one option.
Or if we have fewer than a majority of us who wish to get together, we could do that.
Yes, that would also be an option. At the end of the meeting, it's just never a great time to have these kind of discussions, I think.
I agree. Well, I can work with Jeff on that, and we can either, decide how much interest there is with other commissioners to be a part of that discussion. But thank you, Susan. And if that's okay with Commissioner Powers, we can do that.
I just wanted to be sure, since you all had talked about that at the beginning of the meeting, in case there was questions. So let us know what we can do to help and when you want us to discuss it with you.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any citizens to be heard? Great. Any other business? I don't believe we should have any. I think we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Claire, so moved.
Second. And a second we've got a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Claire, second from Commissioner Powers. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
You too.